Wednesday finds his brother locked in a locker. The apple, which the bullies stuffed his mouth with, is there for a reason. The boy's name is Pugsley, and on his locker there are many jokes written with his name twisted to Pixley. The apple in his mouth is another high-level joke to make fun of his nickname and compare him to a pig, which, served as a dish, is commonly with an apple in the animal's snout. In the 1991 movie, he had the same appearance with the apple in his mouth. Furthermore, the siblings constantly try to get rid of the insults from their lockers. Kinda sad. On the inside, there's a poster of a raven sitting on a leafless tree. Creators right there indicate Nevermore, specifically the courtyard of it, where the identical tree grows, and the crow is a crucial part of it. The school from which Wednesday got expelled is named after one of the USA's first lady and a wife of our ex-president Ronald Reagan, Nancy Reagan. For a bit, we are even able to spot a bust of her. Did you know that this sculpture is actually inspired by a real one? It was once made by a man named Brian Cave. The soundtrack here is Non Je ne regrette rien, excuse my French here, made by Edith Pierce. The lyrics she wrote perfectly fit the on-screen scene. The translation leaves us with something like this: no, nothing at all, no, I do not regret anything, nor the good that was done to me, nor evil, all that I care. Before we go further, leave a subscription to stay up to date with our videos. By the way, thanks for 10k. Alright, no more talking, back to the video. Let's deep dive into the most skipped part of this series, the intro. Only a few realize how many great hints about the riddle are there. Note how the tombstone is falling apart, implying that the plot will have something in common with bringing somebody back to life. As we know, that's exactly what happens. Here is the tree from Nevermore's courtyard that starts to burn, hit by a lightning, and it does also in the last episode. Few seconds later, a fly is devoured by a sundew, one of the most carnivorous plants that are associated with Miss Thornhill. Right after that, we see the black dahlia. About that flower we shall talk about later, and as it's related to a pretty dark, interesting detail. In the final shot, a full moon appears, which surprisingly happens in the final episode too. Wednesday gets expelled from school and moves to Nevermore. She travels there with her family. And hold your horses here, take a look at the car plates. The writing Adams stands out with New Jersey next to it. It's a reference to the originator of this family, Charles Adams, who also is from New Jersey. Larissa's office is full of decent references. She has two ravens on her desk. Those two birds are characteristic for the All-Father and the most important god of the Nordic pantheon, Odin. He was frequently associated with his two birdie friends, Hugin and Manin. Those two symbolized thought and memory and were Odin's own informants, telling him everything and anything about the 9 realms. The principle could be the same as Odin. She lets everybody know that she is the one that knows everything. Over the fireplace, another mythological creature accompanies Larissa in her office, Gorgona. It's a Greek creature that has snakes instead of her, and her glance turns every victim into a rock. Similar monsters to her attend Nevermore's academy, just like Ajax for example. This stuffed teddy also has a deeper motive to be here. The same bear was in Adam's home in the original show from 1966. Alright, those details can vanish because of this head, which is the Harry the Hunters from the Beetlejuice movie. It was directed by Tim Burton, exactly the same guy who's responsible for making Wednesday, so there's no coincidence of this head presence here. We meet Enid for the first time. I think her appearance rings a bell as she is inspired by another popular character in pop culture, Harley Quinn, portrayed by Margot Robbie. Her pink-blue highlights and characteristically painted nails are the reason for this comparison. In the hallway, the vending machine has Lay's and Doritos to offer. It seems that those goods are well supplied in Nevermore. When Wednesday mentions her mother in a conversation with Enid, a picture of the fencing squad appears on screen. From those small letters that managed to smuggle themselves in this photo, we can read out that Morticia Frump, the mother of the main protagonist, was once the captain of this squad. Blondie makes a quick presentation about the groups formed in school. When she talks about the vampires and those appear on screen, they have blood instead of water in their cans. All those items in the principal office aren't the solitary references to mythology. Sirens, like Bianca, are the creatures that originate from ancient Greece. Those creatures are one of the most dangerous entities, imagined to be half a woman, half a fish, which lured unaware sailors with their beautiful singing and made them disappear. In the show, the abilities are sort of changed. They still can manipulate their victim. However, I would like to point out a slightly different detail that clearly shows the creators' commitment to the show. During this shot on Bianca's neck, there is a visible scale. Additionally, this student here is without a face. Gomez calls Wednesday his little Scorpio.
Don't worry, my love. Our little Scorpio won't be alone.
It's a nickname she got in her young age after her real Scorpio pet that even had a cameo in the show for a brief moment. The pet's name was Nero, and if we dig deep into the ancient times, we'll find out that one of the Roman emperors was Nero, from whom the Scorpio got his name. Presumably his implausible actions, specifically burning Rome down to the ground or oppressing Christians, impressed Wednesday enough. Either way, he wasn't a really good guy. Thornhill visits both girls, and as I told you to remember the Black Dahlia, here it comes back. This flower is a gift from the ginger hair to Wednesday, but at the same time it hints that Thornhill is responsible for the mischief in Nevermore. Black Dahlia is a codename for a murder case of Elizabeth Short. She was an American actress who was a victim of a seriously brutal crime. Elizabeth Short's body was found in one of the Los Angeles districts on the 15th of February 1947. She was found by a woman, Betty Berzinger, who lived there during a walk with her 3-year-old daughter. The corpse was bisected at the waist, however there was no blood. The lower half of her body was positioned a foot away from the upper, and her intensities has been tucked nearly beneath her buttocks. The corpse has been posed with her hands over her head, her elbows bent at the right angles, and her legs spread apart. Autopsy determined her blood was completely drained from her body. It was assessed that she was tortured and held against her will before her death. Till this day, the perpetrator is unknown, and it has become a cold case without a positive aftermath. The fact that Thornhill gives Wednesday this particular flower as a gift isn't unintentional. There is even one more indication in that scene that this woman is in fact responsible for the crime. Look at her boots. They're covered in mud, and just moments ago we saw the murder scene in the woods. Simply, we can assume that there were masses of mud and Thornhill was close to the crime scene. The mist tells the youth that playing music after 10 p.m. is prohibited.
Lights off at 10, no loud music, and no boys.
Well, Wednesday seemingly doesn't give a shit and just starts boink on the CeeLo. Oh, and by the way, she plays one of the Rolling Stones songs. The festival takes place where Hyde attacks for the first time. Right before that moment, Wednesday and Tyler have this interesting exchange.
You're not scary, you're just kinda kooky.
I prefer spooky.
It's obviously a reference to the main theme of Addams Family.
They're creepy and they're kooky, mysterious and spooky.
Wednesday goes to the town where she meets Tyler again, and she says,
Wait, you read Italian?
Of course, it's a native tongue of Machiavelli.
Machiavelli was an Italian philosopher whose main belief was that people are evil by definition, and their main driving force is the lust for power and possession. No surprise that he is Wednesday's main role model for whom she learned Italian. The hand sneaks into Tyler's room and shows him the number to call. It's easy to infer that it's the Enid phone number, not Wednesday's. It's well known that Adam's daughter doesn't use mobiles. During the FaceTime with Tyler, notice that even though Wednesday sits at the Enid's desk, she isn't willing to touch anything of color. She even decided to put a black and white magazine under her right hand. Alright, as we all know, Thornhill is the bad guy, so let's summarize all the hints the show gives us so we are able to understand this case on our own. Apart from what I've already already mentioned, Thornhill also gives Wednesday oleander. Nothing weird about that, right? Well, it's one of the most poisonous flowers out there, if you're asking. During one of the lessons, Gingerhead says these following words.
Many carnivorous varieties turn to sexual trickery or deception. The orchid produces a pheromone that mimics a female insect.
Subliminally, she confesses how she controls Hyde. Her knowledge of chemistry and biology definitely go hand in hand with that ability. Interestingly enough, the book she receives from her, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, tells a similar story to Thornhill resurrecting Crackstone. The book is about a doctor who, by using people's corpses' limbs, tries to build his own monster. The analogies to the Netflix series are direct here. There is even one more Easter egg about Crackstone's resurrection. In the Jericho, there is this specific poster. It depicts a pilgrim with a slogan, Pilgrim Love, where history comes to life. It does sound pretty unmistakable, right? Wednesday's words are the last subliminal foreshadow about the destiny of the main antagonist. In the closed museum, she explains that secrets are just like zombies. Those never truly die. In the second episode, Wednesday goes on therapy to Kimbot. Hold here, take a glance at the window with some names. On the top we obviously have Valerie Kimbot, however the last four, Miller, Hogg, Harper and Test, are the surnames of the crew that worked on this production. During Thornhill's lessons, Xavier shows off his trick with the spider. Wednesday stares at it with a dose of emotions. Surprisingly, one of her previous pets was a spider named Homer. In the past, Morticia forbade her to play with Homer after she used her uncle's Festus dynamite instead of hers. Wednesday joins the Beekeepers Club where she meets Eugene. He tells her about his little bees and why he found his happiness with them.
They're nature's perfect community, all working together to achieve a common goal.
Notice how she observes those little creatures. She learns a lot from their lifestyle and how those deal with hardships. Through the whole show, Wednesday is an egoistic girl who doesn't accept people's will to give her a hand. She is individual and doesn't really care about others. However, by the twist of fate, she in the end has to cooperate with her friends to handle Thornhill, Tyler and Crackstone. Well, that means bees are indeed useful. In Xavier's room, there is a book written by Tudor Gezi, Versuri. He is one of the most remarkable Romanian writers. The Poe Cup takes place, and it assembles a team of black cats. Even Wednesday joined. They of course managed to win, but that is not the most important thing here. It's not a coincidence that the name and the theme for Enid's squad originated from a cat. It's a reference to Catwoman from Batman Returns, specifically to Michelle Pfeiffer, portrayed her character. The director, surprise, also was Tim Burton. Take a look at the rivalry team's outfit too, which looks like a Joker. Batman and Joker, these are really close, don't you think? It's not the first time this director smuggles that kind of Easter eggs to Wednesday. Young Adams solves the snap twice riddle. Two snaps with fingers are Adams Family major theme too. I've told you that Bianca has scales on her neck as she is a siren, but she isn't the only one. Kent also has those on his forehead. Nevermore students visit Jericho and then are split into groups for particular shops. Ajax and Enid got the stuffed animal store. Take a look at this rat. It resembles Freddy Krueger, the villain from A Nightmare on Elm Street. Here is another rat that bears a resemblance to Emily the Corpse Bride from The Corpse Bride, another Tim Burton's production. Later in the same episode, we find out that Kimbot supplies herself there. She doesn't buy only the stuffed items. Look what's behind the homeless man in this shot. Cuckoos. Those are also in Kimbot's office. We are able to hear them at this moment. It seems that Kimbot is a regular customer there. Moreover, she has stuffed animals in her collection too, Freddy Krueger or the character from Beetlejuice. In the meantime, Adams enters the closed museum with this painting on the wall. Notice how it differs from the original one on some of the shots. Here, this woman is Goody, but suddenly when zoomed out, it's a completely different person. It means that Wednesday's ancestors wants to get in touch with Adams by various signals. In reality, she wasn't even painted, only Goody deluded Wednesday's eyes with her magic. Wednesday blows up Crackston's statue, and due to the temperature, it literally burns and melts. It foreshadows the future of Crackston's fate, where in the final episode, the pilgrim burns into ashes. Wednesday at that moment plays Winter by Antonio Vivaldi. I believe that there's a relation between her choice and this artist. Vivaldi, just as Machiavelli, is an Italian composer. Apparently, Wednesday is greatly into Italic culture. As we all know, music is a universal language for storytelling and a medium full of symbolism. The movement of the fingers during the first notes resembles a rhythmically stomping person trying to warm themselves up. The part in the middle of the performance represents a pleasure coming from the heat. The last part of Winter symbolizes people centering on ice, meanwhile people inside their homes feel the creeping cold inside. Wednesday plays the exact part of people warming up by the fire, and well, it perfectly represents what's happening on screen. That one is brilliant. Wednesday gathers all evidence on her cupboard, and it remarks it with the following words. She mentions Ted Bundy, an American serial killer, one of the most heartless murderers in America's history. He was sentenced to an electric chair. Adams goes to Xavier's barn, where she finds out about her portrait. I believe the intention of the creators was to refer to the first episodes of Addams Family made in the 60s, when it was physically impossible to make movies with color. Wednesday always wears black and white, and her complexion is as plain as a milk. Even Ajax deemed her to be wholly black and white. Xavier's painting also depicts her in monochrome. In the 4th episode, the climax is the prom. That's where Wednesday's dance performance happens. Notice how her hand resembles the hand. As Thornhill and Tyler meet during the prom, he mentions her daily coffee order.
Yeah, double cap, no foam, 2 pumps of sugar-free vanilla.
However, it's not her usual order, about which we find out when she meets with the mayor in the cafe.
Booth when I come in for my daily matcha latte.
Another hint that something is wrong with her. The boys from the town sabotage the prom with fake blood. It's actually a reference to one of Stephen King's books, Carrie. The only difference is that in King's work, instead of red paint, a real pig blood is used. Wednesday even remarks this relevance. During the prom, there is also one little detail that's pretty easy to miss. Wednesday has a vision after she bumps into somebody. She sees Eugenie running away from something. What's fascinating is that she always has those visions when she gets in contact with an item connected to that particular event. For example, when she walks into the guy with oranges who later dies in a car accident. Eugene obviously isn't there, so how does this happen? Well, she bumps into Tyler, who, as we know, is Hyde, which attacked the kid. Thank you for watching, and subscribe to our channel to never miss any future movie analysis.